Yes, Chu. Did you hear what Trump allegedly did to the Ukrainian president? Word is he practically strong-armed Zelensky about some big scheme. And get this, while everyone's fighting, Americans and Russians apparently had tea and cookies in Riyadh and Ankara, planning a mega deal. They say it'll rewrite borders on the whole planet. Are you even ready for that?
Gee, I'm just trying to figure out breakfast. A global remap might be a little above my pay grade.
Focus, Chu. Secretary of State Marco Rubio, yes, the same dude who claims we're being sneaked up on by otherworldly objects, says Trump's entire plan was to pry Russia away from China. He compared it to the strategy used by President Nixon to separate China from the Soviet Union in the 70s. Then China's foreign ministry basically rolled its eyes, saying they won't let the United States play matchbreaker. And that's only the warm-up.
Wait, so we're talking about like reenacting the Cold War except in color?
Exactly. Now jump to what happened next. Trump invited Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky to the White House. Supposedly, the meeting devolved into a fiasco with insults, maybe even some shoving. Trump supposedly tried to make Zelensky kneel before Vladimir Putin's demands. So dramatic, right? Like a soap opera, only everyone's wearing suits. But get this, even though that scene was super heated, it's just a corner of a bigger puzzle, which I suspect involves powerful folks lining up dominoes behind closed doors. Mysterious, right?
I like dominoes, but this sounds more stressful than any board game I've played.
Totally. Now about the wedge driving strategy, Rubio mentioned Nixon's policy. Let's turn the clock back to the Cold War era, when the US and the Soviet Union were basically squaring off. Over in China, you had nearly 1 billion people doing their own thing, yet not officially recognized until 1971. China used to be super tight with the Soviets, except the Soviets saw China as, well, like a junior partner. Enter Henry Kissinger, known as the Fox of American politics. He convinced President Richard Nixon to drive a wedge between the Soviets and the Chinese, capitalizing on their rocky relationship. That ended up with the US essentially sacrificing Taiwan's seat at the UN to win China over. China left the Soviets, boom, big realignment. Eventually, America gave China the VIP pass to become a major power.
So the master plan was basically, let's break up these besties so neither of them can be stronger than us. I see the logic, maybe be.
Fast forward, the Soviet Union is gone, but Washington kept that wedge strategy. Now Rubio says the new target was to pull Russia away from China. Some argue Russia might listen, because, hey, China's sort of letting Russia take the hits in its showdown with the West. Meanwhile, Russia has been known to switch allies. They abandoned Armenia twice to favor Turkey's interests. So if they've done it before, who's to say they won't do it to China? Especially if the payoff is sweet.
You gotta love how loyalty is optional in geopolitics.
Right? Next up, the American angle. Ukraine says it fights for the West, but the US sees them as mostly fighting for Europe because Russia's literally next door to the Europeans. However, it's not Europe footing the American-sized bill. Washington armed Ukraine since 2014. Ensuring that when Russia hit them hard in 2022, Kyiv was actually ready. Remember Crimea back in 2014? Russia's invasion went too smooth, like a weekend getaway. But once the US was behind Ukraine, Russia ended up knee-deep in the swamp.
So America helps Europe, but Europe doesn't return the favor?
Nailed it. And that ticked off a bunch of American conservatives. Then French President Emmanuel Macron hopped on a plane to China and basically said, hey, Europe shouldn't have to pick a side in America's rivalry with China. China's big. We like them. Let's have a multipolar world. That was, not the greatest look for the people pumping billions into Ukraine's defense. So when the conservatives led by Trump climbed the political ladder, they said, we want payback for everything we did for you guys.
Oof. Nothing like a big debt collection notice from Uncle Sam.
And that brings us to the hush-hush meetings in Riyadh and Ankara, where apparently Americans and Russians might be cooking up that humongous deal. Then we see the White House meltdown between Trump and Zelensky. This is all part of the same tapestry. And if you think that's nuts, buckle up. Odds are we're gonna see more wild twists in this saga.
Gee, can I at least grab a snack first?
Highly recommended. Because it's hard to keep track of world affairs on an empty stomach. Thanks for tagging along, Chu.
Anytime, Chi. Just let me know if there's a sequel.
Oh, there's definitely a sequel, if the world doesn't implode first. And don't forget to follow the channel to get all the latest news with Chi and Chu.
Bye-bye.